All right, welcome everyone to the June 20th, 2024 Helm Developer Call. As always, this call falls under the CNCF Code of Conduct. And if you don't want to be recorded, well, you should get out of here because these calls are recorded and put on the internet for as long as they're around for. So welcome everyone. Today we have, hopefully we drop the meeting minutes into the side. We've got a few things to chat about. First, we got discussion, and we got a little touch on the HIP reviews. So does anybody first have an announcement? I don't have anything, but did anybody else have one? All right, we don't have one. So let's
no
jump.
announcement, but I guess I'll just introduce myself. This is the first call I've been on. Michael Shelton, a colleague here, Vanden as well. I had the pleasure of meeting Scott at KCD New York a couple weeks back. He mentioned that he's looking for some help in the Helm space, and we're pretty heavily involved in Helm internally, so wanted to get us more involved upstream, and so here and hopefully be here going forward, see what we can do to get more involved and help out.
Sounds great. Welcome, and thanks for coming to the meeting. All right, the first one, Evans, you have a question. How are docs translated? You have a pull request up, and there's probably a number of them over on the Helm dub repo we've got to get into. So how does something get translated? Well, the reality is somebody comes along who's interested in translating by hand. Most of our translations were written by people who were heavily engaged at the time and just took the documentation as is and translated it. And we had some good translations involvement. I know some of it was when I worked for some internationalized companies. They just invested in it a lot because their companies got CNCF credit for it. I'm not sure, and I haven't been paying attention to translations lately, but I bet you it's pretty slow and out of date. And we might even need to look at talking to the CNCF about it, who has some better capabilities around helping us with translations now. But in the past, it was just volunteers driven who would drive by and translate things.
Makes sense. Okay, cool.
And I've opened up that pull request, so I can go take a look at that pull request later that you added as well.
Appreciate it.
All right. Joe, you've got something.
Yeah, so I encountered a chart that was, well, they weren't using deep copy, and somehow they'd overwritten the root context with a copy of the root context. But of course, the copy of the root context is, I think it's actually, if you copy it, it ends up no longer being the right type. I forget what the type is off the top of my head. So obviously, when you call a, like file.glob or some other function that's within the root context, you get a null pointer dereference. So I don't know if there's anybody had any ideas off the top of their head on how to improve this. I think that somewhere there could be a type check, but I'm not sure if that's even possible because it's the Golang template context that it's happening
in. Ooh, I haven't looked at this code in a while. We'd have to go down the rabbit hole on this one. It's a good question. Yes, the type when you copy it does change.
Is there a related issue?
No, not yet.
Yeah.
Now this is happening to a chart here internal to our company.
Another question: is it necessary? How's the copy of the root context happening? Is it?
Oh, it was somebody did something wrong, so I fixed it. But the thing that got me was the error message. The error message is so, I mean, it's null pointer dereference. It doesn't tell you anything that's useful. You can't correct your mistake because you don't know what your mistake is.
Okay,
yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah, that's a good question offhand.
Okay, well, if there's no immediate thoughts, I mean, we can mull it over and talk about it later.
Trying to remember.
I was gonna look at the source and see if I could find anything, but I haven't had a chance between the time I found it from now. So.
Yeah, so there's no way to return an error from that. What does it do here? I'm not looking at it. That's a good.
Like I said, I think it all happens inside the template engine, so I'm not even sure it's a possibility.
Oh, you should go. Yeah, it happens. Some of this is inside the template engine, and some of it is the function and how the function works. So files.glob is. Ooh. Okay. So yeah, it's okay. Let's go take a look at this one. Yeah, this is going to take a little bit to dig through, because files is a map string interface of bytes.
Right.
And you can glob over it, but when you make a copy of it, yeah, if you could write up an issue, this is one of those I could probably dig into. I'd have to remember, but I haven't touched this code in quite a while. So,
well, I was going to
refresh
look
on
at it. I was going to look at the code anyway. I just figured I'd bring it up in case somebody had an idea.
No, it's been too long since I've looked at the code.
I'll write the issue.
That sounds like an interesting one. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, if that's what we have for that, then Scott, you've got a maintainer update.
Yes. All right, cool. Just taking some notes here. I realized I didn't take any notes on Evan's topic, by the way. Before I just jump into this topic, is it fair to summarize by just saying we've had different translations at different points based on different versions at specific versions of the docs. I mean, I know that there were a few things that were said, but that seems to be the main thing that stood out to me. We didn't have any other action items or anything like that from that, did we?
No, it's been mostly just drive-by translations.
Yeah, actually going to use that language. Thanks.
I think there's one more thing to reach out to CNCF to see if there's a better way to get translations organized.
There's the CNCF help desk, or service desk. Sorry.
I think that was one of the listed benefits now, isn't it?
It is.
Benefits of being part of CNCF.
Yeah, I've got to log in to go see.
Yeah.
Oh no, they moved it. Okay. Yeah, we'll have to dig through this to find. Okay, we can do that later.
Okay, cool. All right, and then my discussion topic, I know, is one that we kind of have been meaning to offline for a long time, and we still, I think, still do need to offline, but ultimately, for the details anyway. But ultimately, we have a couple of things that have been blocked for a while, due to inactive maintainers. And I think that the governance already has steps for all of that stuff, but what it doesn't have is any stipulation that says, well, we can just kind of ignore those inactive maintainers for voting for things in the meantime, especially things that require a supermajority, and that's where we're blocked right now. So yeah.
Yes, and what we need to do is deal with those inactive maintainers.
Yeah.
You can't get around it. Now, we do have a clause in the governance for it, and several of those maintainers I have reached out to.
Right.
I won't say who, but one of them is going to politely step down after coming back from a holiday. They want to do one little bit of a clean handoff on something and fix something, and then politely step down. They're going to do that after the holiday. There is another one who wants to chat with me about it because I brought it up and I still haven't heard. Send them a calendar invite saying, hey, set up some time, let's chat, and still waiting to hear. And then there's another one who says, I'm interested in stepping back in. Let me see if I can find the time. And I said, okay, we'll talk in a few weeks. So I have reached out to some of the people on this just to see where they're at and how they want to roll forward with it. So I'm trying to work through people right now, just slowly, one every few days, reach out, figure out what's going on. And that's what's happening right now. If folks aren't going to get re-engaged, then that's a problem. But I'll tell you, for voting, it has always been the case. You have to hunt down individuals and ask them to vote on each individual thing. Just putting it on the mailing list and a vote, even when people were active, never got them to vote. You always have to chase each individual down and ask them, will you vote on this? Maybe make a case and get them to vote. Even when they were active, that was the case. So we're going to have to do that here.
Yeah, for sure. Do we want to give some type of, do we want to give a date for ourselves? At which point we say one way or the other, we're going to, like update the governance on some level to like have a provision for people that are paused, or
you can't update the governance without a vote. And if you can't get them to vote, then you can't update the governance. Right?
Yeah.
So you say update the governance. How are we going to do it? You got to vote to update the governance. So until we clear out those inactive maintainers or come up with a thing and then get them to go vote on it, in which case they're active. You've got to do that. So the hunting people down is just required no matter what.
Understood.
And it's probably always going to be. I've always done it on every vote. I've gone around and chased down individuals because they just don't. So there's just legwork involved. And we're not the only project like this. Lots of projects go through the same thing.
That's for sure.
Chasing people down.
Yeah.
And
I
then,
know sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah. And then the inactive maintainer stuff will help once we clear through that, but you're still going to have to do the legwork.
Absolutely. It sounds like that a lot of that's falling on you right now. Would you like help? Could we tag team some of that?
Maybe. I mean, at this point, I've put feelers out to just about everybody on it who's inactive on Helm. And so it's awaiting to hear back from them. I think I'll have to go through because I've been pulling up activity on people who qualify, that kind of thing. So I think there's one other person and I'll reach out to them. But that's everybody else has been reached out to. So now it's just sitting there waiting on them, kind of thing. Let's connect offline. I do have somebody else after. I do have somebody else I do after.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, and then Scott, chase people down. Go take each one of the open votes you've got right now, and one at a time, just chase people down, ask them to vote, ping them in Slack, contact them directly. This is standard par for the course and always has been.
Yep.
And make sure everybody you're trying to reach is actually in the mailing list.
In this case, for these things, I believe they all are. They're just, you're not on the
still not on the mailing list.
No, you are on the mail. Some of these you were on it. So we should connect offline because when I went to go look, I saw your name on there. Maybe it's a thing. Send me the right email address to have on the mailing list. Because I went to go add you and I'm like, Joe's name is listed on the mailing list with an email address. So send me the right one, please.
Okay.
That's mainly just wanted to raise it. Thanks for the time. I'm done with that.
All right.
Agenda.
The next one. Yeah, the next item on here, George. You've got one on here. Enable the OpenSSF scorecard.
Sorry, I was trying to find my Zoom window. So this issue came in. If I understand the description correctly, they want to send a PR for a GitHub action. I don't know what this section does, if anybody else does. Or I can find out more details if no one.
Yeah. Well, if it's an action, it runs in our infrastructure, but the Open SSF is part of the Linux Foundation, which so is the CNCF. So the question is, what does the scorecard do? In theory, I'm okay with these kinds of things, but let's find out. I'd like to know what it does and to make sure we're in good shape on it as well.
Okay, I'll ask if there's a. Let me pull it up. I haven't got it back at the moment.
Okay.
I will go through and try and find out what it'll do for us, and I'll update if no one's familiar with off the top of their head.
Yeah. Because we already do the CII best practices. How do you? Okay.
So is it a way of scanning for vulnerabilities and
Yeah, I do know about this. I was just looking up some of the details again. I know that we did this for the Flux project. And there's just a whole list. There's basically a list of things that they scan for.
And I want to make sure that some of it doesn't come up with like false positives, like charts as tarballs that are checked in, because that's how we transmit them, and we use that for some testing.
Exactly. Yeah, there's one that I believe we validate manually, and then there's one that they do automatically. So there's like the best practices badge that they can give us.
We already have the best practices badge. In fact,
my bad.
we are one thing away from the silver level with the best practices badge. We're only one thing away from silver with the that. We even have things like, to really nerd out here for a minute, and this is even old.
Yep.
Because we were working towards silver, and at one point we just kind of fell back. You have to have a security assurance case where you actually think through this as a formal specification kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And here's where you can find Helm's security assurance case, which goes way beyond what you're required to with the basics. And you can see it was written a number of years ago, but things should not have changed. Yeah. So yes,
yeah, like
very open to
okay. I will dig into the details, figure out what it will do for us. Sounds like a good thing. Just make sure it's not gonna do something strange or create noise. I think is the takeaway. Awesome.
Yeah. Then there is the multi-value YAML file.
So I think so. Very quickly, the gist of this is that when you do -f on the command line, you'll be able to specify a YAML document, YAML file, which has multiple documents within that file. I don't think there's any reason not to support this. I was going to clarify that this wouldn't be like a compatibility concern. I don't think anybody's sending us YAML documents and sticking garbage in a second one and not expecting it to propagate to values. But I wanted to bring this about because we we do worry about these things quite heavily, of course. In theory, it's not fully backwards compatible, but I feel like it would be so strange if it wasn't, if it caused someone an issue.
Yeah, I would say probably for default values, we may not want to have it for backwards compatibility, but for values passed in at the command line, those are up to end users. So if they're using a newer version that supports it, I don't see why not. But for the values file within a chart, because of backwards compatibility, I would say maybe not. Or, there is the Helm version that you can specify inside of a chart. And you could say, hey, for this Helm version, you record this Helm version or newer, and then you can have it there because there is that property. And Helm will check, even older versions of Helm will check and say, oh, I'm an older version of Helm. This chart isn't designed for me.
Okay. Alrighty, I will put this on the GitHub issue. It's going to be a little bit of a pain for this to be implemented because we use the community YAML parser, and the community YAML parser doesn't actually support multiple documents. And if anybody's interested, I
Wait,
dug
it
into how
doesn't?
kube control.
Okay, yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, if you look at the links, there's this hacky for loop embedded in the kube control code, which like looks for like dash 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 and YAML code and YAML files. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Didn't
Anyway,
say it was easy.
so
This is all.
Yeah.
The one thing I would say here is we can probably add a linting command in there too to say if somebody does this with their values file, make sure that they set the Helm version that it works to whatever version we're going to release it in or newer. So that way linting can even warn them about it.
okay, that's a good idea.
I think this
Right,
is
I will update this issue, and then hopefully the person who's interested will be able to contribute.
I suppose we also should say when in your reply about if this is just for the files flag, the values flag, then yes. If you want to do anything more, then it's more complicated.
Agreed. All right. Then we're going to move on to the next one. We do have a HIP review. Evans, you brought up this HIP again, and you're nudging along on it. And here's the thing with that HIP, Evans. I went to go look at it since last time. I've got a number of unanswered comments on it. So when I started to look at it, I thought, I had a couple of comments on it. They haven't been responded to yet, and I think we need to make a change on it. And it really has to do with the output of sending log messages from this to standard error instead of standard out, doing things in the formal way. That's the tweak that I wanted, and that has not happened yet.
The last comment, what? Wait,
So if you open up and you go to the files changed, you'll see I have two.
Yep.
And it's really just to follow the normal convention. You send these kinds of message to standard error instead, not standard out. That's the typical convention for these kinds of messages. And it's specifically called out standard out. That was my gotcha. So I was waiting for Ian to change that, and maybe we should poke him on it. But that's where I was sitting.
Okay, cool. I thought the last comment is that's what it addressed, but yeah, okay, we could poke Ian.
Yeah, and it still says. Where did I see it?
Is it the wording that?
Yeah. It still says standard out right in it. My comment wasn't addressed. That's why.
Okay, cool. Okay.
That's it. But that's the reason this one hasn't moved. Otherwise, it's fine.
I'll follow up.
Thank you. All right, we've got a few minutes left, and we need people to sign up for next week's stuff. Moderator, notes, issue triage, PR review, that kind of thing. Who wants to do what?
I can moderate next week.
All right, all right.
I can do some PR review.
Yeah, I'm doing PR reviews anyway, so I could do that as well.
Yeah.
I want to jump on that bandwagon. Sounds like fun.
Yeah.
There are a few approved ones which are borderline excess. They're smallish, so perhaps one of the maintainers could.
And Joe, there are a number that already have one approval that are larger than an extra small. If you want to go poke at that tag.
They're not me? Oh, cool. I'll look at
They're not you. I know you've got some, and I keep meaning to go to that. Maybe I'll do that this week, but I'm not going to put my name on there. I'm willing to do notes. I haven't done notes in a long time. Anybody else want to do issue triage? All right, you can throw me down there too. And we'll see how far I get. And I should be here next week. Well, is there anything else?
I'd be happy to shadow on maybe some of the PR reviews or issue triage. Maybe not right away. I got some internal clearance stuff I gotta get through first. Once I'm done through that, I'd be more than happy to shadow, or at least get started as I get build some familiarity with the process and code base and whatnot. I'll be honest, I haven't dug through the code base to too much extent, so.
Yeah, feel free to reach out on Slack, on the
Yeah.
community Slack.
Yeah, and if you
Um,
reach out to me in Slack, I can send you some videos and stuff like that to familiarize you with the code base and just how it works and is laid out, that
Okay.
kind of thing. Stuff.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, reach out to me in Slack. Happy to help.
Awesome.
Matt, do you mind sending me those as well, or just put them in the public Helm
Yeah.
dev?
Yeah, I can do that. I'll put them in the public dev channel. Sounds good. Cool. All right, we are at time. Thank you everyone for coming. Have a wonderful week and we'll see you online. Ciao.
you.
Bye.
Bye.